I mean, you just heard it on Friday.
Yeah, but I missed you. We didn't have you on our fake television set for a
Uh,
day.
well, the voice that the people really want to hear comes out of that glorious beard right there.
I
Look at him.
know. Spencer Hall and I are dressed very similarly and yet could not look more different at the
Does
same
your
time. It's
shirt say?
remarkable.
Does your shirt say "Mama tried"? That's all I want to
It
know.
does not.
No.
It does
Okay,
not.
then we are not the same.
That would be amazing if Pablo lifted
If
up
he
the
did
shirt.
that,
No, this
No.
is a New York Parks and Rec shirt.
Oh gosh.
Because I love our parks and I love our recreation. But we should start with the recreation in college. I mean, we have all of these NFL stories. We'll get to with Bill Barnwell, who is always down to engage in a little football culture war with us. But Spencer is here because a giant has fallen. Alabaster, where do you want to start us off here?
Yeah, that's right. I think we'll circle back to Georgia and the actual dominant team in college football. But what I want to ask you guys, Alabama lost to LSU this weekend.
Yeah.
Do you think Alabama is in decline?
Spencer is that a chortle? What is the verb for the that Spencer just gave us to start off this
It's in the same.
conversation?
It's in the same family as tuh, which is like what a preposterous question, but also maybe I have some thoughts that go well beyond this, which I do, because they are in decline.
Share them.
Yeah, this is gone from a team that used to have Bryce Youngs and have them playing a system to a team that now needs a Bryce Young.
Right.
There are so many things that offense does, okay? Because yes, they lost to LSU, and they lost to LSU not because of Bryce Young's performance late, but because of the overall inability of that team to generate as a whole. If you'll notice, Bryce Young does spectacular things. He does them because the things that they do off play, the playbook, right? They don't work. Right. They're not dynamic like they were at wide receiver. They're not forceful like they were along the offensive line. If you want to see what Alabama's offensive line used to look like and how they used to perform, you had to be in Athens on Saturday, not in Baton Rouge. This is not a team that can push people around like they used to. Now, are we going too far for a team that has lost one game by a field goal and another one by a 2-point conversion?
I mean, they should have lost to Texas too. So like, if we count the close games that should have been close, it gets a little bit scarier. I think you've already answered one of my bigger questions, is like, are other teams catching up? Because I remember there was a time when Alabama, with any dynasty, they're forced to evolve. They have to evolve. I remember when Nick Saban was like, all this hurry up spread is nonsense. I hate it. They had to evolve. Then they started doing it better than everyone else. So it sounds like what you're saying to me is this is not that. This is not them needing to schematically kind of get in with what everyone else is doing and catch up with the times, as much as it is they don't have the guys that they used to have relative to their opponents anymore.
Yeah, I want to just provide a little bit of the context for what we saw on Saturday, right? Because LSU at home beats Bama by 1 by going for 2. We will apologize, or I will apologize to Brian Kelly in a second. But in terms of how it is, well, in terms of it, okay, wait. I love the series of hot takes that are now sort of flooding my brain here, because I want to get to why it is that Alabama, per what you saw against LSU, why it is that decline feels like a real thing and not like Tom Brady falling off the cliff talk.
Okay, so it feels like a real thing because they used to have big systems with players across every single position that were simply better than your guys. That was what they did, and that was what they did best. If you look at the recruiting rankings, and I've always thought, by the way, like, time for pet theory number 1, I've always thought that once your recruiting classes got into the top 5 or into the top 10, they were generally going to stay there because there is a counterweight to objectively we found a good player, and that is, oh, well, if Alabama's recruiting them this high, they must be that good. And then they must be, and then that program will take them to the next level developmentally. Those 3 things in order aren't necessarily true, I think, with everyone they're getting. It's not like they don't have one of the most talented rosters in college football. Right. I just don't know if they have, I don't know if they have the staff to put it together. Remember, about 3 or 4 years ago, Alabama's entire staff turned over. All of them right? Except for like their special teams coach and like one wide receiver who was kind of a recruiter. And people would wonder when that was going to add up. How about a full recruiting cycle later? When you have an entirely new staff that never really gelled. Like, talent matters, and I want to point that out, okay? But it has to be put in the right place, and that's where management comes in. Look at LSU
Hold
as
on,
a
Spencer.
counter
Spencer,
example.
hold
Yes,
on. Hold the F on, Spencer.
Mhm.
Goodness gracious. Like your brain works differently than mine. Can we slow it the
We
bleep
can do
down?
that. Yeah.
Yes. So I would like to say that I both love and hate your original pet theory because it's a lot more difficult to discuss and suss out, but it also is part of the reason why I love it. So like there's so many things that you have to balance when you're building a dynasty, whether it's in sports or anywhere else. Once you start having that success, there are these things that happen. And so sniping the coaching staff or poaching coaching staff is one thing that I always thought that Nick Saban seemed to have figured out. Because everyone knew if you come there, then you will be like kind of rejuvenated and go elsewhere. So why doesn't he have like Joe Judge still down there trying to figure some things out? What happened?
It was like the school for wayward coaches in which like high talent names
Hold
would
on
go there.
Before we get back to you with these answers, Spencer. Also, the idea I would like to ask for a study to be done. I want to know how many players were 4-star players and then they got an offer from Alabama. All of a sudden they became 5-star players. I want somebody to look it up.
or those who were just on the cusp. But there's a lot here, okay? And I don't think it's any one thing. Additionally, somebody's going to say, yeah, we're overreacting. That's not what Nick Saban would say. Nick Saban would tell us, yeah, we're overreacting. But privately, the standard is a title every other year. That's your fault if you're Nick Saban, if you want to put it in those terms, because you're the one who got them there to thinking that way. And I think when you look at someplace like LSU, where there was talent and now they just kind of cleaned everything up. Everyone's playing simply and they're doing really productive things. That's really nice. Consider this. This game wasn't close, historically speaking. Usually Alabama soundly beats LSU in this game. I know we've got some good memories. We've got a couple of Les Miles games. We've got a Joe Burrow game, all right, under Ed Ogeron. But most of the time, Alabama walks with this.
Did this feel like an upset to you? Like watching the game, did it feel like a game that was an upset or it felt like the better team won?
So that's what's weird about this, right? This is number 7 LSU upsetting number 10 Alabama.
Right, but you know the question I'm asking, Pablo.
Of course,
like,
no. That's how I saw it. I mean, we're leading the show with it because it is so shocking to see Alabama feel.
But when you watch the game, I want to hear Spencer's opinion because when I was watching the game, I did not, and to be fair, I watched it after I knew the result. I did not experience it like, man, these pesky underdogs sure are pulling off this impressive win. Like it kind of felt like a match of two Titans, and one was just better, which is scary to me because a few weeks ago I thought LSU was garbage.
I'll answer a question with a question. Did at any point did Alabama clearly look like the better team against Texas? To me, with Quinn Ewers in, no, I don't think they did. Did Alabama clearly look like the better team against Tennessee? At no point to me did they look clearly like the better team. That was equals at best to me. In this game, at any point were you startled? Right? That was the thing you got with Alabama at its peak. You said they were startling. They came out and they absolutely dragged someone through the parking lot, right? Threw them off the lip of the stadium. You were talking about brutality at every point. That's not what you get, okay?
I got to remember those.
If you want that, you got to go east and down 78 out of Atlanta to get to Athens. That's where that standard is right now.
We just went Socratic method while also fusing it with a TikTok of someone just getting jumped in a parking lot, which is incredible.
It's the beauty of Spencer Hall. Like I hope that I never forget dragged through the parking lot or thrown off the lip of the stadium. Those are two should be cliches. Those are things that aren't cliches yet, but we need to add them to the lexicon.
We'll work them in there. Yeah.
Agree. So hold on. The LSU looking like a peer to Alabama, right? That dynamic thing. I want to find out whether Brian Kelly deserves an apology because I feel like I missed the boat in some sense by over-indexing on family and under-indexing on, oh, wait a minute, right? Maybe the whole thing about how at Notre Dame, he actually just needed more talent to beat Alabama, like that thing might actually just have been true.
Well, it's not like I want to push back on that a little bit, as the experts would say, because I want us to clown all that stuff, because that's not Brian Kelly's forte, and it will never be his forte. You should make fun of all of that stuff as much as you want to. That's what the money's for. No one's ever questioned the dude's ability to coach. None. Like, and if you watched, who looked like the tidier team, the tidier, cleaner, neater team? Like, when I think about Brian Kelly football, it's execution, right? Like, that's kind of a cliche, but I think about people who are going to, this team all year long has been in 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6, 2nd and 4. Like, they make a little bit on first down, they get a little bit on second down, and then all of a sudden, whole playbook's open, and you have a quarterback who can run. That's simple. Boil the game down to its simplest parts, okay? Additionally, Jaden Daniels, my favorite coaching point of the year that seems to have really held. At Arizona State, he had a tendency to sort of run laterally, and they just basically switched his alignment. They just took that gyroscope and went, go that way. Only go that way. Don't trip.
As someone who spends a lot of time on the weekends watching 9-year-old flag football, the kids who go straight are much better than the kids that go side to side.
That's correct.
So
That's
once
correct.
you get a kid to go straight, oh gosh, you're in business. But to your point about go ahead, Pablo.
No, for the podcast audience, we saw one of those players, I believe, go side to side behind Domonique like 5 minutes ago. Incidentally, still running around.
Actually, in the past several weeks, that kid been going straight. He's been putting up. He's been putting up numbers.
Show the dots.
We gotta
Producers, show the dots. Show Declan's
We gotta talk
dots.
a little bit. We gotta talk a little bit about. You're not Tyreek Hill, so please put the peace sign away. Like, I hate being that dad, but I gotta be that dad. Like, man,
you're the no fun league dad. Oh my gosh,
I hate
Domonique.
it.
How did you become this? How did you become this dad?
So it's.
Did
not
you tell him
that
to play the right way?
No, I did not. It's not the peace sign that bothers me or the gritties in the end zone that upsets me. It's everything that comes along with it. Like arguing with the referees. It's sad that it's a package deal. I'm like, go ahead, do your dance, but don't argue the referees. Don't throw your hands up at the quarterback when he missed you, because it's not like you caught all the passes that were thrown to you. So anyway, we're getting off track.
Yeah,
we're getting off track.
I
love it.
Let's get back to Alabama. So you said Brian Kelly coach teams tend to be a little bit more tidy. And when you said it started making me think, like, what do I think of when I think of Alabama's teams? And it's those soon-to-be cliches that we talked about. Right. Those teams are always talented, but I always think about, like, damn, that's a team of men playing against a team that has a couple of men, but mostly guys who are going to go off and, I don't know, sell insurance after they graduate.
Right.
Not everyone who's going to play football. There's a lot of parking lot dragging, and if they can no longer drag people through the parking lot and their coaching staff is like turning over every couple of years, I don't know where they find the advantage.
Yeah, I don't, and I think this is the point in Alabama history under Nick Saban where there's a pivot and something changes. The move to me was pretty obvious back in the day when they went from standard, boring, pro-style offense to something that was more spread, that ran the quarterback just a little, and, sort of modernized the offense. I don't know what the obvious move is now. I don't. Like, for once, it's not get better dudes, because you've got a top 5 class. Is it coaching? I don't know.
It's a weird spot to be in when you're on top, and it's like companies, I think, are probably big behemoth companies are more comfortable with this, where it's like, you think about like the tech giants, they don't innovate anymore. They just like incorporate. Mm-hmm. And if they don't know, like, it's easy to look around and be like, who's doing something that's special? Let's buy it. But right now they're looking around and no one's doing the thing that's special. They need to go watch some D3 ball and find some new ideas. It's like onside every down or something. I don't know.
Real quick, the answer to that would be, let's go get a dynamic quarterback who can cover up everything. They already have that.
Right,
they have that.
This is. It feels like. To continue on the capitalism metaphor, it feels like the mandate for growth is beginning to wear on this team. Like, you can't go up anymore. And so what do? You try to maintain. And when you begin to slip against a peer, guess what happens? We start talking about a shareholder revolt, which is the pivot point that Spencer's dancing around, Dominique.
Yeah, I got it. And maybe this is the final point. I know what the evolution is. They're too focused on themselves improving. You got to focus on sabotaging everybody else. That's the move. Bring everybody down. You got to plant moles in the rest of the SEC schools and bring them down. That's the way back to the top, Nikki.
More Joe Judges who are actually worse than Joe Judge that you claim to rehabilitate, then you export to bring them down from the inside. Yes.
Yeah, you actually developed assistant coaches too well. One of them went to another school and set it up and is now doing it better than you did it.
Damn.
Yeah, it's rough.
So
we're
at
really good on that. That was amazing.
Alabaster, we should I think we did a rare thing, which is we generated through rigorous analysis like a headline that should make news. Like I think we're saying Alabama's kind of done. Are they kind of done?
That's right.
Pitch of my voice is the pitch of my voice sufficient? Caveat?
The way I put it is, you've had as good a time as you're ever going to have, and everything else from here is just slightly downhill.
Man, that hit me right in the dad zone. Actually,
So
no, that sounds like somebody who hasn't tried to eat an apple in the shower after a long time. Tried that? That's a serious dad pleasure right there. A little bit of a fruit snack in a nice shower. I know everyone talks about the beer. I'm going to put you on a healthy tip. So let's try an apple.
Yeah, you can wash it and eat it in one fell swoop.
Yeah, don't leave it in there. That's gross.
So as we move on, I will say, I love that the sub headline that we generated without saying his name is Bill O'Brien ruins Alabama. Well done, guys.
I didn't say Pete Goldie ruined Alabama, and that's, if you read message boards, that's another thing that people have suggested. So I would say this: of the two, Pete Golding has the more entertaining hair. So get rid of him last.
But Bill O'Brien has that butt cleft. Is that chin butt?
We respect butt clefts as well. We're an inclusive program.
Never seen your chin. You just told on yourself. All right, let's talk Georgia.
Okay. I am fascinated by Georgia because they're sort of right now the new Alabama. And my question to you all is: Georgia the only team you trust in college football?
Trust.
Yeah.
Stetson Bennett, guys, he balled out, but also that's where I think the questions lie for like trust, right?
Listen, the mailman keeps delivering. Okay,
Yeah.
that's I every time that you really want to write him off, he does something like throw a beautiful play action pass open downfield, like 50 yards clean. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, that wasn't even his best pass of the game. Like I think the one over the outstretched linebacker in the back of the end zone.
The back of the end zone.
Yeah.
So what is a Stetson Bennett? Like, what are we here to say about how good he actually is? Because I don't know. I have the same
aside
instinct
from
to
King
laugh.
of Athens, like
But
King of Athens.
But the boat shoe King of Athens, Spencer. Like if he's the reason to have doubt, but also the reason to have confidence, explain where we are in that inflection point too.
I don't have much doubt. The man can throw 2 picks in a game and they still win. And then he goes out and has a game like, keep in mind, against Tennessee, the defense was doing its thing. The offense really needed to respond and place further pressure on Tennessee's offense, right? By scoring and keeping up with them, which was a possibility because Tennessee coming into this game scoring like 50 points a game. Or you need to come out and make a declaration and say, whatever you do, we're going to do it right there. And we're going to continue to hammer you, and we will be here the whole game. Stetson Bennett went out, dove for the pylon, right, on a play, on a rush, threw 2 incredible passes, and then is in this offense where you have 2 good running backs, you have 2 tight ends who, as we previously discussed, are each the size of their own zip code. Darnell Washington is like so big, he should have his own Google location. He is so big that I feel like he should have 4 names or 1, but nothing in between. He is. I can't describe to you how big he is in person.
You don't need to describe it. He got his hands on a DB on a run play one time.
Yes, he did.
And I felt it. I didn't need any words. I was sore the next morning. I was like, I ain't even play. I felt it through the screen. It was unfortunate.
He has that kind of block where it's not even that violent.
Yeah.
It's just we're going over here. I have something interesting to show you over here at the 35-yard line.
That's the
and you're
thing.
coming
It's
with
like
me.
I saw Cordero Patterson in the NFL run through a linebacker this weekend, and you saw him like load up and throw it. And the same with Fournette he got somebody in that game where you like load up and throw it, and you saw it's just casual. Where it's
Well,
just
a
like,
train. Have you ever seen a train, like a video of a train hitting something?
Yeah.
It's like that. The train's
Yeah.
real casual about it because it's casual for the train. It's not for the truck or whatever it's hitting. I love Darnell Washington, and he's not even the best tight end. That's Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is already like legit NFL level talent, and they use him all over the field. Like, if you want to talk about like the great meeting of like talent, management, development, and luck, all right. Somehow they found this dude on campus, Stetson Bennett, and he ended up being a fantastic quarterback, even though he was like a 2-3 star recruit, depending on who you ask. He is accompanied by a 5-star offensive line whose backups are all 5 stars. You have 2 5-star. I'm sorry, there are 3 5-star tight ends. One's Eric Gilbert, who's had some things that happened developmentally. Okay, so he's back there. They lose Nolan Smith, their 5-star linebacker, 4 or 5-star linebacker, and his backup don't go lower than the 4-star mark in terms of recruiting. Okay, if you're not the brightest coach in the world, okay, a very good strategy. And I'm not saying Kirby Smart's not this. I'm just saying if you want to win, just start piling talent and see what happens. Because for all of the things that we might say about how good that defense was, they didn't do anything fancy. They manned up. That's all. They just played man and said, "You're not as good as we are."
So this is a 27-13 blowout, essentially, right? This is the boat shoot king of Athens, boat racing, the #1 team in the country, and just based on talent, what we're here to tell our audience is none of this should be surprising. Is that where we are with Georgia then?
None of it should be surprising. Like, it should not be surprising when you see Keely Ringo, the hero of last year's game against Alabama for the national title. When you see him just casually show up for a pick, that's his first pick of the year, but it's not even like he has to produce like that. It's not. He can just sit back and play his role and be patient, because that's what everyone on the defense does. We haven't even said Jalen Carter's name, because Jalen Carter was not blockable. It was not an option. Like, if you were the Terminator and you were lining up and it was like, what would you like to do? Block is grayed out on the menu. He's getting through. He was beating doubles. He was the guy who really pressured them on that near safety that Javonte Scraggins like basically did holy rollered out of the end zone, and they just were like, we don't even know what to do with it. That's not a safety. Jalen Carter, if he's healthy, the defense is now at the level where if they get a 7, 10, 14-point lead, you're in dire straits.
I like that. I like the idea that the supply chain is holding up all the Jalen Carter blocks, and they can't make it over here. It's like, no, they're stuck. Sorry, it's still grayed out. You can come back tomorrow and ask, but I still don't think we're gonna have any more of those.
No.
But are they the new Alabama? Is an interesting question. I don't know why, but they got a good. Maybe it's because Alabama did it for so long. It feels Miami-ish, like back when Miami, which I guess it's certainly not a compliment to say it feels Miami-ish right now. But I guess Alabama and Miami are similar in that they just were loaded and stockpiled talent behind talent. And it feels like there are Pro Bowlers, not just 5-star guys. It feels like they're Pro Bowlers behind Pro Bowlers on that roster, which is why I think like Miami. And I guess Alabama, they do that at receiver, but I don't know. Yeah, they do that quarterback too. Never mind. I'm sorry. That was an unnecessary tangent. Yes, they're the new Alabama.
But to the point, Georgia has won 27 of its last 28. And the question, I guess, is not, is Georgia the only team you trust in college football? It's, do you trust anyone in college football, right? Because it's binary. Either you trust Georgia or you trust nobody. And to what extent do we take the fact that, this team just casually shut down also like the best quarterback in the country that we had been calling the best quarterback in the country, Hendon Hooker, right? Like, they do all this stuff pretty casually. Is that, Spencer, which side of this should we be? Yes.
Oh, I would go ahead and trust them. I think you're looking at this as a run. Like, in college football, you do have runs, these dynastic runs where you get a seam of talent so deep and so well coached, right? I don't want to overlook that, all right? But like, I prefer to talk about the players because, they are the bedrock of this sport. And a lot of them who are of the finest quality minerals happen to be coming from the mine underneath Atlanta and the state of Georgia and going directly to Athens. So I would rather talk about them, but there is some management here But on the whole, like when we look back at those great Hurricanes teams, we don't talk about management, right? Like we go, okay, well, do you think
that's why I didn't
you know,
last, I guess, right?
yeah, I mean, like, do you think of like, you know, like not, I'm not down talking them necessarily, but like, do you say, oh man, Butch Davis, and Larry Coker, like great strategists? No, that wasn't their thing. They got talent in the place. Kirby Smart is a great defensive coach, and he's a great recruiter. That's a mess to deal with.
Thank you, because now I understand what I was thinking when I said Miami, not Alabama. It's because like Alabama is not sitting on top of Miami or sitting on top of Atlanta. Like that's why it feels different. It feels different because it feels as sustainable as Alabama was. This feels like even more sustainable unless they stop playing football in Atlanta, because there's so much good talent in that area. And nobody wants to leave their state if they don't have to. Like most people want to go, want to stay close to home, want to put on the jersey of the team that their friends and family all root for. So that's the Miami Alabama comparison, or Miami Georgia comparison, that I was looking for. Hopefully, well, no, University of Georgia wants to be good at football. University of Miami didn't for a long time, which was part of the problem.
Yeah, this is, if you have proximity to talent, you have a good NIL program in terms of getting players hooked up with actual sponsorships and money in the area. And you have coaching, and most importantly, for recruiting purposes, the very real prospect that you will be drafted if you go to this program. The entire Georgia defense last year, shy of like 2 dudes, all ended up in the NFL. All. You can walk into a living room and say, you can make more money than your parents have ever made in a year next year. Okay. Not, of course, no, I'm not paying you. But if you come to Athens, the star potential of NIL money will creep in, and you will be NFL bound, financially comfortable, and in a place where you will live the life of Riley. It is an amazing pitch right now for them. It's really good. And the only thing that's going to break this down is, one, if you start cracking down on that management core, keep in mind, they're paying assistants in Georgia who are making all of this happen $1-2 million. They are making tremendous money as coordinators there. In addition to that, the other thing that might pick that off is if somebody else gets the money right, and if somebody else really, really starts to get something that's going to be, I don't think a strategic advantage is going to do it. I don't think you solve this with like some sort of Michael Lewis genius coming out of the way. Like, he does it differently. You don't cheat getting your face smacked. You don't cheat a block, right? You don't cheat being able to juke somebody out of their shoes. Like, football to an extent can be managed and engineered, but at one point, I'm going to need you to bury a dude.
Well, I do want to pivot a tiny bit away from how Georgia's so dominant to what their dominance means for this college football season, because the team that they crushed, Tennessee, is now going to be a one-loss SEC team that's not going to make the SEC title. It might be on the outside looking in at the college football playoff, but they're not alone. There's Clemson, there's USC, there's whoever loses Ohio State, Michigan, and TCU's undefeated, and who knows what's going to happen there with the rest of their season. How do we see this all playing out? And is this like a nadir for the college football playoff in this 4-team format?
We were about to get into gene editing, and Alabaster decided to ground us in the college football playoff.
Some CRISPR Cas9 chat. Jeez, Alabaster, you maniac. I don't know. Clemson's out. That's all I got for you. I know they're done.
Yeah, Clemson's out. I don't think this is done. Like, we've said all these nice things about Georgia, and I'll also say this. They're one bad game away from making this a very different proposition. They are one bad game away from losing, being a one-loss team. Their losing is not likely, but it is probable. Like, that to me is like, it's possible, I think is the better word. Yeah. So, I don't ever want anybody to leave here. Hi, this is why I do this for a living. And people love it. I don't want anybody to come away from this feeling certain or comfortable.
Yeah,
I'd like you all to be as uncomfortable as possible about this, right?
This is the Domonique. This is the note they have to put in the email where it's like, past performance is not indicative of future results. Like, none of this should be legally actionable stock advice.
That's right. Like we're all talking about Tennessee as being total trash this week, okay? And to be fair, they put in a performance where it didn't look like at any point on the field their dude was better than the dude across from them. They did not look like that the entire game. The score was very deceptive. They can go out and smoke somebody next week. They could end up playing like if we had some wild scenario where Tennessee and Georgia met again in the playoff. Do I think it's likely that Georgia is going to beat them? Yeah. Is there a scenario where Tennessee just comes out and, like Domonique says, has their dog aligned, has their inner dog aligned? Yeah, that could totally happen. I could see that happening. And it's because I think at best, when we get all this lined up, it will have, and to speak kindly of the Senior League, it will have something like the NFL where week to week, I really don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. I really don't, right? I watched the Jets beat the Bills today. Yeah, man. What?
Nobody
I don't,
knows.
that's, and you don't get that in college football because there are big disparities. But when we play it right, that's ideally what we get.
But I mean, I think that's where we're heading to, right? We're heading to a point with the NIL and with the playoffs and with the big conferences where the talent disparity is not going to be there as much. So, I mean, we aren't there yet, but I think, and maybe the recruiting hotbeds will always be the powers, but like, I feel like we're headed in that direction where we'll have college sports that's like close to the NFL, right? Maybe.
I mean, maybe.
No.
I think a lot of this is institutional, but
trying to steer us back to something less interesting and more immediate.
Yeah, we're trying to make a think piece here, Alabama.
So can I make a headline with your think
piece?
Tell me if I'm wrong. 2 SEC teams and 2 Big Ten teams make the college football playoff because their one-loss non-conference champs are still better than the conference champs in the ACC, Pac-12, and Big 12. There's your headline.
That is a judgment that the committee could make easily. Because if I get something like, let's say North Carolina comes out with 1 loss, are you with a straight face going to tell me they're better than Tennessee? Are you really going to try to do that?
Not with a straight face.
No, not with a straight face.
A screw face, maybe.
Yeah, you're going to tell me that I believe USC lost to Utah, who lost to Florida, who's barely going to make a bowl game this year, and you're going to put a 1-loss USC in there. You're going to put Oregon in there. I've seen what Oregon does against an SEC team. That's how we opened the season. They were leveled. Yes, it was game 1. I don't see the results as being dramatically different in a rematch there. So, yeah, I think you could see that. And then I think even worse, I think you could see a situation where, let's say it was, let's say we had, your Michigan-Ohio State kind of thing. Ohio State did not look great against Northwestern. I know. It was a driving gale. It was like 30-mile-an-hour winds. Don't make weather excuses when you claim weather virtue, Big Ten. Don't, okay? Because everyone in the Big Ten's like, you should come up here and play. Yeah, I've seen that. It's garbage. Nobody wants to watch football when it's blowing 30 miles an hour, okay? Not even Northwestern fans want to watch it. They weren't there. So I don't know. You could still end up with, I think this is the reason we're getting expansion, because the product right now involves a very thin slice of data that we get, which inevitably favors teams like Georgia, who can just throw a bunch of monsters in, let it roll once or twice, and win a title.
And then throw somebody off the lip of the stadium. Because they did that to Tennessee. They need someone new.
I feel like if we're going to further tumble down the rabbit hole of this think piece we get to talking about, does any of this actually measure who is good? Do we need to play the game? Should we just have committees adjudicating everything? But I feel like Alabaster wants us to get to the game that Spencer referred to before, which is Bills Jets. Yep, there's that check mark, Domonique. Okay, so Spencer,
we earned it finally. Pay the players.
We copied off of Spencer's homework as we always do, and we'll copy off of Bill Barnwell's in a second. Thank you, Spencer.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, we have a part 2. A rare labeled as part 2 episode of this fake television show, Domonique. And look who it is. It's your boy. I'm going to call Bill your boy now.
Oh, of course he is. I mean, normally you say your boy about somebody that you don't want to claim. I will happily claim Bill Barnwell. He's a genius.
Major upgrade in finances here, moving from Pablo to Domonique in terms of dad. So I appreciate that. Just
also
dad, a lot of college debt I have to get to.
Yeah, in terms of literal finances, to be very clear here. Alabaster, where are we gonna put Bill's brain to work first?
So we have to start with the shock in the NFL today, and that is the Bills' loss to the Jets. It didn't just blow up what we thought of the Bills, the team. It blew up the MVP picture. And my question is, how do you view the NFL MVP picture now?
Wait, is that what we're doing? We're exploding the NFL MVP race, which means that Josh Allen, because his team lost by 20-17 to the Jets, that's what happens, Bill?
Absolutely. That's what happens. This is a 1-week universe we operate in, Pablo, especially on these fine shores here at Debatable. Absolutely, Josh Allen should not be taken out of the MVP race altogether. But of course, there's a major conversation to be had about Josh Allen at the very tippy top of the National Football League. Already before this game, kind of saw some moments where Josh Allen was throwing a few too many interceptions, few too many catchable passes for the other team. And then in this game, it bounced back even further. 2 fumbles and those 2 interceptions in this game cost the Bills. They didn't add enough points as the game went on, and the Jets made it their way all the way back, rode that short field from the second Allen interception into a touchdown, and won this game. And to me, as good as Josh Allen is his best, and of course, we know Josh Allen is an incredible football player, when we're comparing him to the guys at the very top of the NFL, he's turning the ball over more often than the other guys in that mix.
Yeah, I mean, he gets talked about in the Mahomes conversation. Like, we have those two up there next to each other as kind of the next two heir apparent to take over the league, the rivalry that's going to define the next decade of football. And there's a difference. Josh Allen at his best can be as good or better than Mahomes at times, but Josh Allen at his worst is something that we see occasionally, less and less often now, but it feels like it's something we never see from Mahomes. We don't see him, with the exception of the second half of that playoff game last year, which even in that situation, he made some questionable decisions. We don't see it nearly as often from Mahomes as Josh Allen. And you brought up interceptable passes. It's something that a lot of us have noticed for Josh Allen through the course of this season. And a lot of people seem to act like those don't exist. If you don't catch them, they don't matter. But the problem is when they do catch them, they do matter, which is why some of us track them and respect them. And we saw what happened in this game. The first one was really inexplicable. I think Josh Allen, who I think is one of the biggest people on any field he steps on, couldn't see around the rusher and didn't see that there was a defender there and just dropped it in his lap. It's the type of stuff that you don't expect from an MVP. Losing a game is fine. Having a bad game is also fine. But you're not going to win the MVP when you have games like that. If he has any more like that, which he actually played in a way where he could have had games like that previously, but then we had the drop interception. So everyone's like, no, Josh Allen's the man. And I'm guilty as anybody else.
Well, it does seem I'm getting a distinct strain of finally we can say this stuff out loud from both of you. It feels like this has been building up, and Domonique just went full on some of us.
No, I mean, to be fair, Bill's been saying it out loud for a while. I haven't, because I came for Josh Allen a long time ago, so I need to wait really, need to be really, really patient. I do not have the credibility to go interceptable passes. Not with Josh Allen, not at this point. I got to wait for some real interceptions before I say,
yeah, Bill, so Bill, let us launder our criticisms through you and your credibility, please. Yeah, what are you seeing here that's different? Like, is this something that we're learning about this guy that we did not know before?
I don't think we're learning something new, in as much as just we're seeing a guy who is supremely confident, right? I mean, that second interception, I don't think Josh Allen never saw Sauce Gardner. I don't think he thought, I can't throw this pass. I think he just saw, yeah, I see him, and I'm going to throw it over him because I'm Josh Allen, and I can hit any window I want. And frankly, if I was as talented as Josh Allen, if I was a tenth as talented as Josh Allen, I would be irrationally, inappropriately confident in my abilities. Josh Allen thought he could fit that ball in, and he did not fit that ball in. And I think defenses, as much as they struggle with Josh Allen as a passer and especially as a scrambler, I think defenses do sit there and say, hey, if we have any shot to stop Josh Allen in this game, it's to try and lure him into a throw that we think we can beat him if he tries to make that pass. And we saw that happen on the second interception in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's outrageous for anybody if you think that it's like really harsh criticism of Josh Allen. I don't think that's what we're doing at all. It just like it brings into relief the difference between him and Mahomes. And I'm saying this while the Mahomes game is going on. Please, Patrick, don't fumble twice and throw 2 interceptions and lose. That's going to be really embarrassing because I know Charlie's not going to let us edit this out. But I mean, Josh Allen's season last year was not an MVP caliber season. The season before that was. He had a playoffs that he won the playoffs last year. Like that was what resonated for all of us. Was he threw for 6 touchdowns on the Patriots, and then he dueled with Patrick Mahomes and played well enough to win that game. I felt myself walking away from last year's playoffs saying he has arrived.
Yep.
But I kind of had forgotten all the things that happened in the season. Even though it was a good season, it wasn't a great season. And now he started out this season. Big numbers. We're like, damn, that dude's special. But then it's a lot like when you hear people talk about Lamar Jackson, I guess, is there are negatives. Like, nobody's perfect with the exception of Patrick Mahomes. Again,
Yes.
Everyone has drawbacks.
Unless he throws 2 interceptions in the intervening period that we're talking.
Which is not going to happen.
Yeah, which could never happen.
This conversation never happened.
Yeah,
if
so
that
like
happens.
it's not fair. It's not fair to pretend like he's not allowed to make mistakes or he's not allowed to have bad games, or also he's not allowed to have weaknesses. Like, yes, he has weaknesses. And one of his weaknesses is that he's so damn good that he makes incredible passes 60% of the time. And then sometimes people catch those incredible passes. And if the rest of the team does not overcome that, they're going to lose.
It's okay.
Look, Bill, the backdrop, though, for all of this, right, is that he is gaining confidence to the point where his behavior now is framed as confidence and excess of skill as opposed to what it was before, which was the same thing but incompetence.
That was the point. That was the point. Bill politely framed this as he makes these throws so often that he thinks he can make these throws. He was making those throws before he could make those throws. Is the thing. The new thing is that he's consistently hitting them more often than not, and we should give the Jets some credit.
I was going to ask too. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Sauce Gardner, who Domonique obviously loves, but also the Jets defense that sacked him 5 times against 4 fewer rushers, right? A career high or a low in that sense for Josh Allen, like, rock bottom type stuff. Bill, how good are the Jets now is the question that I think we have to pivot to.
I don't want to have to say the Jets offense led by Zach Wilson is good on video. I really don't want to do that if I don't have to. I like the receivers. I think Michael Carter played really well in this game. And I think the defense is legit. I've kind of picked on them for playing a bunch of backup quarterbacks. Josh Allen is not a backup quarterback. Josh Allen is a legit MVP candidate and has played like it for the vast majority of the season, even with those interceptable passes or even with those minor issues here and there. And they slowed down Josh Allen throughout this game with pass pressure and with coverage. And it's really hard to do both those things. Josh Allen, really the best thing he did in this game was scramble. He really was not doing much as a passer throughout this game. And I think the NFL season as a whole, I think the story that's sort of come into vision for me as the season has gone on is just, oh my God, every single team needs Odell Beckham. And for the Bills in this game, this was another example. Stephon Diggs had that big play early on that double move, set up the first touchdown of the day, or first score of the day, and after that point was pretty quiet. Sauce Gardner did a good job. It wasn't always Sauce Gardner on Stephon Diggs, but when Stephon Diggs wasn't making plays, the Bills didn't have that second guy to get open and make plays, and maybe that's a spot for Odell Beckham to make a difference when he's not playing for one of 6 other teams who also desperately need Odell Beckham to come in and save their seasons.
Yeah, that double move, Sauce was a bit too aggressive in cover 3, and they play a lot of zone, which like surprising me given like how good Sauce Gardner is in his particular build. But they play a lot of zone. Reed on the other side of the corner was really good also, but they didn't have to blitz that much. And I think that's the scary thing about Stephon Diggs is when you either play straight man or you blitz, which puts you in some sort of effectively you're in man coverage. And then Stephon Diggs is too quick for just about any corner in the league. They didn't really have to do that. And that was, I think, a credit to their defensive line, able to find ways to get pressure. And also they like sack Josh Allen, which I know sounds stupid. It's not just getting pressure, but actually being able to bring that towering human being to the ground is an accomplishment every time you do it. So that's something that not all teams have been able to do. It'll shrug you off and make a big play as a result. But yeah, having corners matters. Most important position on the field.
I can sense just the tension between Domonique's pet theories, right? Number 1, cornerbacks rule. Number 2, the alpha receiver as the key to victory, right? Like these are the things that were watched unfold in that second half where Stephon Diggs had 0 catches.
Right. I don't feel like there's any tension. That just reinforces my pet theory. Is that having a number 1 receiver really matters. And if you have a really great corner who can slow that receiver down, you stink.
Also, by the way, like it's incredible that Sauce Gardner is this good as a rookie, because even great cornerbacks struggle
Yeah,
during
let's
their
talk
rookie
about
season.
this. Yeah,
Some
Domonique and Bill, I mean, yeah, this seems rare.
There are some exceptions. There are some players who peak as rookies and then decline slowly as the rest of their career goes on. But most typically, players struggle as rookies and then improve shortly thereafter. Even Darrelle Revis struggled as a rookie.
I mean, I think Surtain's really good and really young. I think part of it
Sure.
is the league changed a lot, and this is another one of my pet theories. The league changed a lot. Like in the early 2000s, the rules changed,
Yep.
and it made it very hard to play defensive back. And all the defensive backs that were in the league and all the cornerbacks that were coming into the league grew up with a different set of expectations and a different set of rules. Like I kind of feel like this generation of cornerbacks is kind of the first generation of corners that grew up in playing football with the expectations as they are. So the athleticism was always there, but like the repetitive actions and the understanding how things work wasn't. I think that's part of the reason why some of these young corners are coming into the league and playing well early and are more comfortable with like the back shoulder fade. Something we've talked about before in my podcast is like the whole concept of like playing chest to the sideline and trying to run full speed with someone down the field is something that we've never coached. You were either at your chest like towards the receiver or you were turning and running. Now they're like playing in between. It's something that Sauce does really well. And it's the only way you can cover the back shoulder fade, which like I routinely gave up because I was like, nope. No, if you're not going to go 85, so you can have his 12 on his back shoulder because like it's just not something that we practiced or considered until people started doing it, and it was too late.
So I guess with the Jets then at 6-3, with Sauce Gardner as described being the evolutionary next phase of Domonique Foxworth,
like slightly taller Domonique Foxworth. Domonique Foxworth slightly less stooped. He's getting bigger.
He's a lot cooler than I ever was too. Like I'm jealous of it.
Sauce really is. I mean, hard to compete with. Just as a branding issue, which raises the issue of like, okay, Bill, is Sauce Gardner now like in the MVP race? What does this look like? I mean, what's the give us where we are now with Bill and Josh's relationship now clearly on the rocks.
You know what? Josh is going to be fine. He's going to have a couple good games, and we're going to forget this ever happened. Nobody at the end of that playoff run last year, nobody said, Josh Allen looked like the most terrifying football player who's ever lived, but he did lose to the Jaguars in October, so I don't think he's that good. Nobody said that, nor should they have. But Patrick Mahomes has been more consistent, and I think the other guy who has been more consistent seems to not get involved in this discussion for some reason. Is Jalen Hurts, who happens to be the starting quarterback of the only undefeated team in the National Football League, and an offense that's built around his strengths and that he plays so well at that they don't really need him to score most of the time in the second half of games. So I think if I was picking one player to win a game against aliens, I'd pick Patrick Mahomes. But I think you can make a case that Jalen Hurts has been the best player in football during the first half of the season.
Yeah, now we get down to the magic that is the MVP question is like, what does it actually mean? Because if I'm picking one player to win, I'm definitely not picking Josh Allen because he is an alien and he would sabotage the game because he wants the aliens to win.
Pull off the jersey and it's just going to be alien skin?
Oh, yeah. He would unzip his skin and just, it's an alien inside there. Clearly. He hurdled a man 2 weeks ago, guys. Never forget that MVP level quarterback jumped over a human being in the Chiefs game.
Yeah. Incidentally, I do feel like us ever defining value in this context would be to sabotage our entire industry. Because why define the terms of a debate that you don't actually want to ever end?
No.
Tyreek Hill's MVP.
Ooh.
There it is.
I'm just setting you up a segue for you, Pablo.
Ooh, okay. Wait. Speaking of Tyreek Hill, what's next, Alabaster?
So the next question I have for you guys is about these star wide receivers that got moved this offseason. And it is, why did the Tyreek Hill trade work, but the Davante Adams trade didn't?
Oh, man. Yeah, let's get messy. Let's get a little messy here. Let's get into some relationships, some household dynamics. What's at play here?
The coach.
That's the first one, right? It has to be. Yeah. Like Mike McDaniel is a lot better at using Tyreek Hill than Josh McDaniels is at using Davante Adams.
That S. The difference is the S. That S is weighing him down. It's the problem. He can't think that well because he got an S lingering on the back of his name and is
You
causing him
remember?
a lot of trouble.
You remember when the Jags had that plank of wood in their locker room, and they had the punter chop the wood, and he chopped his
Yes,
chop his
I do
foot like his
remember.
foot.
I do remember
That's
that.
what they need to have a ceremony in the Raiders locker room where Josh McDaniels chops that S off.
You got to get rid of that S, man, because that S is getting in the way of great play design, attacking deep down the field. Like, I was looking at the stats just to try to figure out an answer to this question, and they throw a lot of passes 0 yards or less. And the Chiefs, or not the Chiefs, the Dolphins attack downfield, and that's one of the big differences in the stats. Is surprisingly, statistically, these teams aren't that different. But the one big difference is yards per attempt, and also like attempts of zero yards or fewer. It's just like you're wasting plays. You know how people say you don't run the ball or you shouldn't run the ball very often because those are opportunities that are missed to have like a big passing play. They're doing the same thing. It's just they're throwing it out there like, hey, let's throw a 0 yard pass when we got possibly the best receiver in football and the best receiving tight end and a really good slot receiver too.
I mean, they've had injuries this year. It's been Adams at times. I know last week there were rumors that he had COVID, he was sick, and so people wanted to come up with excuses for why he had a bad game. But the reality is the Dolphins do such a good job of integrating the offense around Hill and Waddle and their ability to get downfield. And the Raiders don't do that with Davante Adams. There's just not this sort of reliable opportunities for him within the context of that offense. And I think we can say Derek Carr is not a good enough quarterback. I don't think that's true. I think he's fine. You can say the offensive line is bad, but the Dolphins' offensive line is not that good. If anything, given that Darren Waller has been hurt, given that Hunter Renfrow has been kind of in and out of the lineup this year, there should be an even bigger opportunity for Davante Adams to be the focal point of this offense. And yet, even though Tyreek Hill is sharing the primary role with Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill is having casual, like 140-yard games where it's like you sort of just take it for granted.
Right. I mean,
that's why he's MVP.
Is that part of the? I mean, is that part of the answer? Is that Jalen Waddle is available and effective?
That's what I was going to ask about, right? Like the fact, I mean, look, Mike McDaniel, who, yes, leave off the last S for Savings, right? The fact that he has Tua back, the fact that he has Jalen Waddle right alongside, I mean, Domonique, man, like
Hill was putting up numbers when Tua wasn't in there. Like he's pretty good, and that's partially because of Mike, and it's partially because of Jalen, but it's also a huge part. Tyreek Hill is really good. And I know we weren't allowed to say he was the best receiver in football for the past several years because he was playing with Patrick Mahomes. But I would wake up in cold sweats, even though I hadn't played in years, thinking about trying to guard him. It's like impossible. It's something we talked about a bunch in the offseason on Get Up where we don't have anything else to talk about. So we're just like, who's the scariest receiver in football? I would routinely say Tyreek Hill because of his acceleration and quickness. Like, normally get one or the other. It's like people are straight line fast as hell or they're quick as hell. Or like they can do both, but they really can't track the ball well. They don't have great hands. He like does all of the things that stress me out the most as a defensive back. It's like, all right, you're a short area quickness guy. That's fine. I'll sit on you short. I'll take away one side or the other and we'll live with the result. Oh, you're also the fastest human being that ever lived. And you can go from a complete standstill to top speed in no time. Oh, and again, yeah, you're a little short, but you attack the ball and track it in the air as well as anybody in the game. Like, he's really freaking good, might be the answer, is that he's actually the better player.
Bill, my favorite genre of off-season television is dream analysis.
Oh, yeah, that's great. What does it say about me?
What does it say about me that my teeth are falling out? Can we debate that on Get Up next time?
Yeah, I'll find out. I mean, is a cheetah, is a live cheetah pulling your teeth out? If so, it means you are also scared of Tyreek Hill.
I did have a dream this weekend that I had to go back to work at the call center I worked in immediately after college. And nothing wrong with working in a call center, but I am very concerned that if I give the wrong answer to this question, that's where I'm going. I think that's an anxiety dream strictly related to debatable. Pablo?
I will say, Domonique, that Bill Barnwell, previously having worked at a call center, explains his level of patience with us better than I ever possibly imagined.
You got to get that sale, Bill. Got to get that sale.
I am really doing tech support for all of the NFL, I think, on a week-to-week basis, depending on what column I'm writing. Alabaster, what's up?
Oh gosh.
So-
Jeez, make us talk about the question again.
Mm-hmm.
No, if you flip Tyreek and Davante, how do you think their seasons would be?
Ooh, I
mean,
I
Davante, just to refresh people's memories, right?
Yeah.
Davante Adams was the man we said was the best receiver in the NFL, or some of us,
You said
Sure.
to go passive aggressive.
Sure.
Some of us said that. So yeah, what changes do you think?
I think what changes is that Tyreek Hill is better on the Raiders than I think Davante Adams would have been or has been on the Raiders so far. But I don't think it really changes what the trade did for the Raiders. I think that's the big issue here. It's not really about the players to me as much as it is the realities surrounding those players. The Dolphins had already had already used a lot of their draft capital from the Laramie Tunsil trade. They traded a couple of those picks, of course. They traded up for Waddle. They traded one for Bradley Chubb recently. But they already had a core of young talent on that roster that was going to have to thrive this year, regardless of whether Tyreek Hill played like a superstar, whether he played like a pretty good player, or whether he got hurt and was miserable the entire year. They were going to have to succeed independent of that, and they have. A lot of those players have gotten better. A lot of those players are playing at a high level. And for the Raiders, the opposite is true. They traded a 1 and a 2 after the John Gruden era, where basically every one of their first and second round picks either got hurt, was terrible, or had terrible off-field incidents happen.
Yeah.
And so that core of talent, those young guys who are supposed to be the bulk of that roster, are not there. That's why the Raiders needed those picks more than they needed a 29-year-old superstar wide receiver. That team, we wrote about it before the year, wrote about it at the time of that trade. That team had an inflated record last year because they got a bunch of either COVID-influenced quarterbacks or backup quarterbacks towards the end of that season and won a bunch of close games. They're like 0-5 in one-score games this year after being so good in those same games a year ago. And so I think the Raiders did not do a good job of self-scouting, did not do a good job of recognizing where they were relative to the rest of that division, and sort of got stuck saying, okay, well, we need a star to compete because all these other teams are good. And the reality is, as good as Davante Adams is, it didn't get them where they needed to be in terms of their talent level on that
So
roster.
sad. It just feels like
Domonique.
as a Raiders fan, if they exist, you just got smothered under a fact avalanche from Bill Barnwell. That just is so
Domonique.
uncomfortable. Ugh.
I was about to say, Raiders fans now having nightmares about Bill
Oh,
Barnwell.
God. That was so uncomfortable. It was like an avalanche, just rock
Nothing
upon
you
rock.
thought was good
Yeah.
was ever good.
And
The love
also,
you
I
thought
already
you had
told you
was hate.
this. I
told
told
you
you
in
this
March.
off season that this was going to be garbage. Now, take all his rocks.
You know what?
The question was, what would be different? And I'll save you guys. I'll try some word economy. Where's the S? If the S is still in Vegas, y'all still getting the
Domonique.
L's.
Dominique, Bill just stole the S. Bill can use that S wherever he likes.
There you
It's okay.
go.
No, hold on. I have a question. If Davante Adams was Davante Adam,
Oh,
do you
I
think he becomes an NFL player?
I
don't
think the
he does.
problem might be too many S's.
Too many S's.
That might be the problem.
Okay, so our last topic is one that me and Domonique Foxworth were both very wrong about, which is the Bears offense and Justin Fields. And he has turned the season around, even though they lost today to the Dolphins. My question to you, do you think Justin Fields is the best quarterback from the once vaunted 2021 quarterback class?
We all thought he was really good, and that was part of the reason why we were critical of the way that they handled their roster leading up to this season and previous to the season. So he's showing it, and they've taken a while to figure out that maybe letting him run a little bit will help, and he looks like a good centerpiece to build around. The problem is they wasted so much time already that that rookie deal is already halfway burnt up.
Halfway.
Yeah, see, Bill, I'm kind of disappointed, man. Dominique's diplomacy here. Like, I figured there was a route to just triple down on Justin Fields being mismanaged. The Bears did lose this game, and now we have this list of quarterbacks we're supposed to compare him to. And I want to refresh your memory, Bill. That does not need refreshing. But Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Kyle Trask. My God, he's on there too. Kellen Mond, Davis Mills.
Is that one man? Or you just combined several quarterbacks into one Superman that is
That's right.
capable of posting a 75 passer rating if called on in America's time of need? That's a very useless superhero, but sure, we can have that guy. the thing I think about is this: like 3 weeks ago, as a nation, we watched that Bears Commanders game where they just looked like a total mess on offense. And they've been so much better the past 3 weeks. And yes, they upped their play action rate, and that stuff does matter. Chase Claypool does not have a meaningful role in this game, but you'd figure as Chase Claypool's time goes on, he's going to be a bigger part of that offense. But like, how much of what's changed between 3 weeks ago and right now is not Justin Fields getting better at quarterback, not Justin Fields feeling more comfortable in the scheme, but more just Justin Fields just making shit up and doing things on the fly and being really good at doing so. And I think that's the thing that I think maybe is exciting if you're a Bears fan, and maybe also troubling if you think he's working within the context of the system, is that I wonder how much of it is just that Justin Fields is incredible and maybe he's constrained by the lack of talent and the sort of middling offense around him, and he has to transcend that to succeed, which is so hard for any quarterback to do.
For the podcast audience, what you're not seeing is Domonique and Alabaster's eyes lighting up with takes rekindled.
Yes.
If that's where we're going, right? The idea is
I actually was going to defend.
In spite of,
I was going to defend the coaching staff and say that, I mean, his coming out party, so to speak, was that Monday night game against the Patriots, where the coaches did decide to do a lot of design runs, which was not all like Justin Fields making shit up. It was them deciding to like actually do design runs. To be fair, though, in that game, his numbers came out really well. He played really well, but he also like threw the ball at the wrong guys, and that was one of those
fumbled like 4 times in that game, I think.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was one of those things that like that game could have gone entirely differently. But in this game against Miami, it was a lot of Justin Fields saying, "Get on my back,
right?
Let's just make this happen." So that's not sustainable. That's not going to win you any championships. But if the hardest thing to find in football is a franchise quarterback, it feels promising that he's shown in several weeks in a row that he can be that.
Okay, there's a stat here that he now leads the NFC North in QBR.
Okay, that's a trick stat. That's what that is. That's called a trick stat.
Yeah, run through that list of quarterbacks. One of them did weigh like 50 pounds more in chains after beating the Commanders today, so I guess that qualifies as something. Oh, there it is. Wow, we have it.
Ooh. That is a man who has $200 million in the bank dancing. That is a man who does not care about being cool because he can buy the plane that they're taking home to that game.
Good for him. I'm happy for him. And then the other person that we can talk about in that division is Aaron Rodgers, who
do we have to?
Okay, yeah.
No, we don't have to. Moving on.
Like, I mean, is there like a card I can play here that gets us out of that conversation?
Yes.
Just command deleting Aaron Rodgers into the trash can. I want
to point out though, he has an S at the end of his last name. Ooh. Aaron Rodgers for the second half of the season.
Yeah, that's too much. These S's, we figured something out, guys. Open your third eye, which would have been funny a couple weeks ago, and now it's just sad.
Yeah, it really is.
That's the whole Aaron Rodgers debate. I mean, like, do you think Justin Fields has grown up so much in the past 3 weeks that your opinion of Fields has shifted at all? It shifted dramatically? Like, where do you feel now?
Can I ask it this way? Because Alabaster is trying to get us to answer this question, and the question seems to be: is he better than Trevor Lawrence? Are we just of the agreement that is where we are now?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is we've thrown away last season for both of them, right?
Yep.
Is we've been willing to say, hey, your coaches and your situation was so bad, we're not going to count it. Yeah. And they both kind of had up and down performances in this season. So picking someone between the two of them that is better is really hard to do considering how up and down they've been. So, yeah, they're better than everybody else. But those two, still a question is out there.
I mean, Trey Lance, we don't know. Trey Lance has played basically no football and is going to be entering his third season. We don't even know what team he's going to play for next year, let alone if he's going to be a great quarterback. So you rule him out. Mac Jones, I mean, doesn't look like Mac Jones is getting much better. He was okay in this game against the Colts, but it wasn't like, they were moving the ball in a situation where they had their defense just totally stifling Sam Ehlinger. And, I mean, at this point, I think you would say Zach Wilson had stretches in this game where he was okay, but Zach Wilson's also looked absolutely horrific more often this year than Fields or Lawrence. I think it's a two-man race at this point. And I think Lawrence to me is still the better player. Like I think he does more as a passer than Fields does, but I think Fields has the ability to single-handedly win games in a way that I don't think Lawrence has.
Mm.
I don't want either of them. I'll take Patrick Mahomes, please. Thank you.
Patrick Mahomes. one Mahomes, please.
Yeah, that's it. Just one. I don't need two. Just one Mahomes, please. Thank you.
Oh God, I really hope Patrick Mahomes throws like 5 interceptions in the course of this show finishing.
What a sicko you are.
A sicko with
Sicko's
5
committee.
S's.
Pablo's Torre.
Yes, put the S on it.
Thank you for not calling me Pablo Torres, which is the usual place the S goes, which happens to me like 3 times a week, honestly.
No.
Oh yeah.
How?
I mean,
I got
it
called
goes
Will Smith
Torres,
last
Pedro.
week.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it was an old
Did
lady.
you slap? Did you slap someone in the face?
Yeah,
No.
yeah,